ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hidalgo County Lincoln Reagan Dinner. Tonight, get ready for some great food, great music, and outstanding guest speakers. I'm excited too. So a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Yvette Vargas. I was born and raised in Mission, Texas, daughter to a Texas farmer and migrant workers. At the age of 9, I started helping my parents pick cotton in the scorching heat of Lubbock, Texas. Believe it or not, it was then where they taught me the work ethic it takes to be successful. God, family, and country. In that order, I prioritize daily. Today, I am a mother, an entrepreneur, and work for one of the largest school districts in the state. And occasionally, I shoot some commercials. Before I begin, I would like to ask you to look at the person in front of you. Now, take a look at the person behind you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's safe to say that we have at least one thing in common, and that is we love our country. We love our state. We love our county. We love our cities. We love our towns. Tonight and every day, I would like to invite all of you to inspire, motivate, and most importantly, educate, to help turn Hidalgo County red. I would like to invite Samantha Salazar. Like her, many years ago, I had the privilege to be the Director for Public Relations for the Young Republicans of Hidalgo County. YRs, you're doing an amazing job. Samantha, you're doing phenomenal.
My name is Samantha Salazar, and as the Hidalgo County GOP PR Director and Hidalgo County YR Treasurer, it is a blessing to finally be here with all of you today at our long-awaited Lincoln Reagan Dinner. I'm a first-generation college graduate, currently pursuing my master's degree, paying my way through school with a full-time job. Born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley, in a middle-class household, Mexican-American household, my father instilled the virtue of resilience in me. He also, a long time ago, shared this very popular quote that you might be aware of. He said, "If you're not a liberal at 25, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative at 35, you have no brain." Right? I love it. However, being 23 years old, I can confirm that this cold-hearted perception of young Republicans remains very much alive. I have been bullied and shunned by my Democratic friends for not sharing their illogical Democratic beliefs. However, it's that resilience in me that will continue to stand as a proud young Republican in America. A young Republican's future is bright, because to be a young Republican, it means to stand your ground and not follow that herd of sheep. It's that resilient spirit in each one of us that will continue to carry on those conservative American ideals. And it is for that reason that I would like to thank our volunteers in the back. If you could give them a round of applause, please. Most of them are young professionals at the foundation of the Republican Party in Hidalgo County. I would also like to say that it's the fabric of the community that truly unites us. It is our local businesses and individual sponsors who truly make it possible for young Republicans and myself to be able to flourish. right? And it is for that reason that I would like to give a very special thank you to our sponsors, Peña Garza Consulting, Bebo, Otho Brand, Tim Wilkins, Rick Brown Family Funeral Home, SNF Developers, Vicky de la Garza, Bogus Ford, Dr. Slavin, the Not So Silent Majority, Claudia Ponce, Dr. Lorena Rojas, Ronnie Cantu Construction, Michael and Maritza Pruneda, Monica for Congress, yeah, Rick Morales, Lorraine Owens, Frank and Beatriz Sabo, and Hilda and Dr. Levine. It's because of your support that our organization remains prosperous. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening to witness the Republican spirit in Hidalgo County. Now, please help me welcome Alma Perez for the invocation. Thank you.
Good evening. Please join me in prayer. Thank you, Lord, for the freedom to gather this evening. Thank you, Lord, because you have kept us safe in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our state and nation need your healing hands to mend us and make us whole. We are gathered here today to celebrate the principles and the ideas that bring us together as a party. We know that you have placed us in Hidalgo County in this very moment to carry your message forward. Our society is facing many challenges, and we know that only you hold the answer to the trials our community faces. We pray that you give our statewide officials present this evening the wisdom and discernment to carry out your plan for our state. We pray that we may be encouraged tonight by their leadership and their vision to our great state. Help us share our values with our neighbors through kindness, love, and compassion. The world needs more of that today. Bless the people that were instrumental in making this event happen. May the meal provided this evening be nourishment to our body and soul. We pray your blessing on every single person in this room. Amen.
Thank you and welcome everybody. And I'm sorry, but I forgot to change my shoes because I've been here all day. But having said that, I'm Hilda Garza de Chezo, Secretary of the Hidalgo County GOP. I am so honored to be here today and introduce to you a group of students whom I am so proud of because they represent a school district of which I was a member for 33 years. So at this time, I would like to please rise as we introduce the PSJA Early College High School Army JROTC Bear Battalion. The Color Guard is posting the colors this evening. The members of the Color Guard are Right Guard Cadet First Lieutenant Ethan Garza, U.S. Flag Color Guard Commander Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Christian Ruiz, Texas Flag Cadet Command Sergeant Major Kayla Flores, Left Guard Cadet Major Ayla Diaz. The PSJA Early High School Army JROTC Mighty Bear Battalion is led by Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Christian Riaz and Cadet Command Sergeant Major Kayla Flores. The PSJA ROTC program is under the direction of Major Retired Thomas W. Oakes and Sergeant First Class Retired Gregory J. Wyro Beck. Please welcome the PSJA Color Guard as they post their colors this evening.
Present. Arm. Now, the PSJA College High School Army JROTC Color Guard request permission to post the colors.
Permission granted.
Thank you. Now, order. Arm. Post.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Hannah Ballinger to come up and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Hannah. And please remain standing as we have, once again, PSJA High School choir member Marisol Mireles, under the direction of choir director Lori Rodriguez, who will sing the national anthem for us this evening. Marisol?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you once again to PSJA Principal, PSJA High School Principal Mr. Elias, and thank you very much. And go Bears!
Hello, fellow patriots. It is an honor to welcome to the stage a person who I think can do it all. Our fearless, amazing Hidalgo County Chairwoman, Adrienne Peña Garza.
Good evening. Welcome again to the Lincoln Reagan Dinner for 2021 for the Hidalgo County Republican Party. It's an honor to serve this incredible organization. To help it grow and endure over the years is truly heartwarming. I know this past year has been difficult. It has not been easy. But tell me, ladies and gentlemen, when in our nation's history has anything we've ever done been easy? President Lincoln lost his son in the middle of the Civil War. President Reagan survived an assassination attempt, and mind you, that the man that shot him was released on an insanity plea. In the past several months, we've been contacted by national, state, and local press. We've also been contacted by other GOPs and conservative trailblazers from throughout the country asking us for advice on how to engage today's youth, how to keep factions together, and how to connect with the Hispanic community. If you rewind 10 years, it was a much different story. But it took exceptional leaders to rise, set the example, and pave the way. Leaders like former State Representative Aaron Peña, my father. Hilda Garza de Shazo. Dr. John Guerra. Mónica de la Cruz Hernandez. And of course, our victor, Justice Jaime Tejerina. Did you know that President Lincoln ran 6 times before he won an election? Speaking of challenges, I know of a girl from South Texas, deep South Texas, who at one point in her life was poor and at times hungry. Her dad was very young, trying to finish college, and her mother always made do with the little we had. This little brown girl from the southern border of Texas also has a learning disability called dyscalculia, much like dyslexia. But she was taught by her parents at a very young age that no matter what challenges we face, to never, ever give up. Gratefully, God has always put the right people in her path to help. Much like today, our team really has earned recognition, so please stand if your name is called. Hilda, Michael, Peter, Alma, Jordan, Sam, Hannah, Robert, Myra, Wasim, Melissa, Jim Barnes, Aaron, and of course, my God-fearing husband, Jimmy Garza. We are truly blessed, and with a good team, any organization can achieve anything. Our state leaders that are here today, I can tell you because I'm blessed to say that I know them all, that each one of them would not be where they are here today without setbacks. It's basically the formula for success. The secret is to never give in and to keep pushing forward. One story that has always been dear to me is that of Governor Greg Abbott. What an amazing testimony of perseverance. Not only does he advocate for life, which I love, but he fought for the 10 Commandments at the Texas State Capitol grounds and consistently fights for the Second Amendment. But his story of courage, love of family, hard work, how we respond to the challenges that we face has inspired me for years. So with that, please join me in welcoming our governor of the great state of Texas, Greg Abbott. Doing a selfie, so if you'll just stand. Oh, yes, sir. Okay. Okay.
Smile, everybody. Women are always more talented than guys. Isn't she special? Give it up for Adrian. She is absolutely amazing. And you all are absolutely amazing. You know, I was really astounded when I arrived here tonight, getting to take photos with so many people, and the best thing that I could ever hear from somebody is great to meet you. Most of the people that I'm seeing tonight I had never met before, and getting to see so many more Republicans in the Rio Grande Valley getting involved. I want to tell you a couple of things. One, I have been to over 1,000 Lincoln Day dinners in my lifetime. I have never been as impressed as I am with this Hidalgo County Lincoln Day dinner. It is fabulous. I've never been on a stage with so many accomplished, articulate Latinas as I have been tonight with this group of ladies and Adrian. This is amazing. if I were the Democrats, I would be very afraid right now because there is a storm coming, a storm that is going to win Hidalgo County and the Rio Grande Valley. Does anybody here remember who Bum Phillips is? Some of you. Bum Phillips was the coach of the Houston Oilers. There you go. And he was also a part-time philosopher. So you're going to remember this line because I think it applies to the Hidalgo County Republican Party. So paraphrasing him, two elections ago, the Hidalgo County Republican Party knocked on the door. Last election, you beat on the door. Next election, you're going to knock that damn door down. I wanted to be here in person tonight for one primary reason. I want to say thank you to the Hidalgo County Republican Party for what you all did this past election. It's amazing to see the results of this election, but also amazing to see what people were talking about after the election was over. Remember, after the election, obviously there were the consequences of the election. But if you look at the national stories that were being told, it was about what you all did. I want to pull it out. This is just one of so many stories. I picked the Washington Post. On this headline, this is what the Washington Post says on November the 9th. It says, why Texas's overwhelmingly Latino Rio Grande Valley turned toward Trump. In it says, Republicans ran up their numbers in the overwhelmingly Hispanic, reliably Democratic counties along the border. The shift extended through the more than 1,200-mile border from Brownsville and McAllen to the sparse ranchland near Laredo and the high plains of El Paso. McAllen and Hidalgo County are in the middle of the epicenter that's going to be the earthquake that will shake and reshape politics in the Lone Star State. But here's the amazing thing, the Washington Post and these other national commentators, they're just now picking up on something that we've seen for a long time. I saw it when I first started running for governor. Back in 2013, the very first trip I made in my campaign for governor of Texas was to the Rio Grande Valley. No governor in the history of Texas has been to the Rio Grande Valley as much as I have. That is how much I care about the Rio Grande Valley. But as the Peñas know, the Republican Party really began to take shape, and the shift from Democrat to Republican began to take shape before that. It first began, as far as I could tell, with the Peñas, because obviously Representative Peña was a Democrat, and his daughter Adrienne, who is now the chair of the Republican Party here, she grew up the daughter of a Democrat elected official. And of course, everybody knows a history where Aaron changed and became a Republican. I'm sure there were a multitude of reasons for that. But one is this, and that is the Democrat Party that Aaron may have been a part of more than a decade ago. It no longer exists. At that time, they called themselves Democrats. And then they called themselves liberals. And then it became progressives. Now they call themselves socialists. And that is exactly what they are. They are socialists with AOC Ocasio-Cortez being their leader and the people who call themselves Democrats being their acolytes. That may work in New York City, it may work in California, but it does not work in the Rio Grande Valley or the Lone Star State. And definitely their socialist programs are not for Texas. Let me tell you something the Democrats will not tell you. These Democrats like AOC who go around preaching all this socialism and trying to hand out everything to everybody else, it's been capitalism. Capitalism in the United States that has elevated more people out of poverty than all of the socialist programs put together, and we are not going to allow the socialists to destroy the fruits of capitalism now. And Texas is the prime example of what capitalism can be. Look at what we achieved over the past few years. Texas has been ranked the #1 state for business by CEOs for 16 straight years. Texas has led all states in the United States for exports for 19 straight years. This past year, during the time of a pandemic, we did not take our foot off the gas pedal. We continued with economic development, and Texas, during the year of the COVID pandemic, won the award that goes to the state that ranks #1 in the United States for the most economic development and job creation. It's called the Governor's Cup, and Texas won the Governor's Cup for 2020 as the #1 state for economic development. In fact, every year that I've been governor, we've won that award. But here's the thing that impresses me the most about what Texas has done economically. This is the aggregation of what everybody in this room has contributed to. During the COVID year, let me rephrase this. Before the COVID year, if Texas were its own country, we would have the 10th largest economy in the entire world. But that changed, like so many things, during the COVID year, because we're no longer the 10th largest economy in the entire world. If we were our own country, we would now have the 9th largest economy in the entire world. Our economy is larger than Australia. It's larger than Canada. It is larger than Russia, and we just this past year passed Brazil to be #9. Having met a lot of people for the first time, you may not have heard this line before, but now that Texas' economy is larger than Russia, that makes me more powerful than Putin. Speaking of powerful, you have some incredibly powerful guests and speakers who will join you tonight. One is none other than your land commissioner, George P. Bush, right here. And a good friend of mine who does what I used to do, and that is ensure justice in the state of Texas on the Texas Supreme Court, Justice Eva Guzman. Thank you both for being here. But listen, as great as Texas is, one thing that we know is we have everlasting challenges. We have challenges from the socialists, challenges to make sure we keep our state solid. And I did have the opportunity earlier outside to get to visit with some people who agree, like I do, that one of our top priorities that we must address this session is to ensure integrity in the election process. It stuns me that some Democrats insist that there's no voter fraud taking place. And what's amazing about it is it was Democrats with LBJ that mastered voter fraud in Duval County in the state of Texas back when he ran for the United States Senate. And I will tell you this, when I was the Attorney General of Texas, I prosecuted voter fraud across the entire state. Voter fraud is real, it must be stopped, and we're going to pass laws to ensure there is integrity and trust and confidence in the election process, and we will prevent cheating and illegal voting at the ballot box in the state of Texas. There's something else that we're seeing going on in the state of Texas that's an echo of the socialism that we're seeing seep into other communities across the country. We're seeing other communities adopt the socialistic idea of defunding our police, not supporting our law enforcement officers, the brave men and women who put their lives on the line to save our lives. It's wrong to defund and demonize our police. Instead, we should be supporting our law enforcement officers. That's why I have insisted on legislation on my desk for me to sign, supporting our law enforcement officers and defunding any city in Texas that defunds our police. You know, they say elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. And we're seeing one of those consequences play out today from the Oval Office and from the chambers of the United States Capitol. You may remember during the course of the campaign for the presidency, all of the Democrat candidates for president echoed exactly what Beto said, and that is, hell yes, they're going to come and get your guns. We have news for Beto. Hell no, Beto. Hell no, Beto. Hell no, Beto. Now the President Biden is talking about trying to get your guns or put limitations on your Second Amendment rights. We are not going to allow that in the Lone Star State. And that's why I'm seeking legislation that makes Texas a Second Amendment sanctuary state, protecting us from the outlaws. And speaking about protecting us from some of the outlandish ideas coming from Washington, D.C., that includes protecting Texas from the liberal agenda of the Green New Deal. Let's go back to this presidential election. There are two primary reasons why the Rio Grande Valley and the Hispanic community in the Rio Grande Valley supported Trump so strongly. One was because of the jobs, the high-paying jobs that are associated with the energy sector. Those who are involved in developing our oil and gas, our natural resources, those natural resources that make the United States of America energy independent. And we're not going to turn back. We're not going to lose our independence. We're not going to give up on fossil fuels. We're going to keep those high-paying, energy-based jobs in the Lone Star State. And that's why last month I issued my own executive order. My executive order goes to every state agency in the state of Texas, where I have ordered every state agency to identify to me immediately if they receive any information from the federal government asking them to impose any regulation that would threaten the fossil fuel industry. And once they do that, then we will be filing legal action against the Biden administration to put a halt to their attempt to crush Texas energy jobs. And if you have any doubt about our capacity to do so, go back to what Adrienne said earlier when she talked about what I had done. And I'll remind you. I'll put it in this context. One thing we all like to have in life, if we can do it, we'd like to be able to say that we have achieved something that nobody else will ever be able to achieve, a record that nobody else will ever be able to surpass. And I happen to hold one of those. I hold the record for having sued the Obama administration more than anybody else ever has or ever will. And about half of those lawsuits were suing the Obama administration for their attempt to interfere with the oil and gas sector in Texas, and we're just going to dust off those lawsuits and rename it from Obama to Biden. We are not going to allow the Biden administration to crush energy jobs in Texas. The other reason I mentioned, there were two primary reasons why I think that Hispanics in particular, in the Rio Grande Valley region in particular, chose to support Trump. And you've seen the stories about Democrat counties where Trump was the first Republican to win those counties since Reconstruction. Other counties where it was closer than it's ever been before. And the reason for it, in addition to the energy sector jobs, is this fundamental principle that Trump stood for. Trump cared as much, if not more, about the people who live and work on the border as he did about the people coming across the border. He wanted to support our fellow Texans who live in our communities along the border. And we're seeing the results again of elections, because you remember during the course of the election, all of the presidential candidates said they were for these open border policies. Anybody could come across the border. And when they come across the border, they should be getting free health care. Let me tell you something. If we're going to hand out free health care to anybody, it should be the men and women who've worn the uniform of the United States military, who fought for our freedoms, who made America great in the first place. But as ill-informed and crazy as the Obama administration border policy was, the Biden open borders policy is even worse. We've seen the consequences of the failure to even prepare. They don't have any facilities set up for all these people who are coming in, where Biden has said that any unaccompanied child migrant, as defined 17 or younger, can come into the United States of America no matter where you're coming from, no matter what your situation is. Of course, there's going to be thousands upon thousands of people coming across the border. But the Biden administration was not prepared for what happened. He wasn't prepared for the number who have COVID. More than 10% of the young migrants in Carrizo Springs, in Midland, Texas, are positive for COVID. Now, they're getting the health care they need, but also they are exposing themselves to adults who leave the facility that day and go into hotels and into communities, and no one knows how far and how wide that COVID could be spread. That lack of concern for our health care is stunning. But there's something far more frightening. Something that Secretary Mayorkas even admitted to himself last Sunday. He said so many of these young kids never even make it because of the dangerous trek they are on coming to our border. The fact of the matter is, most of, if not all of these kids are subject to human trafficking. They don't just magically show up at the border and get across. They get there because of cartels and gangs and human traffickers who bring them across. Have you heard the stories about kids who are wearing different colored bracelets on their wrists? There's a reason why they're wearing a colored bracelet. That's because the trafficker on the Mexico side is in communication with the trafficker on the Texas side, and the trafficker on the Texas side will communicate back that, yes, the person with the right color band has reached here, knowing that they didn't get their money. That's one of the reasons why I have deployed to the Texas border 1,000 Texas Department of Public Safety officers and 1,000 National Guard to fill the gap that the Border Patrol cannot fill. And what DPS does, because the Border Patrol are so occupied with the incalculable number of people coming across, it leaves gaps. Gaps that the cartels try to fill. And when they try to fill those gaps, they are met with Texas Department of Public Safety officers. And when we make apprehensions, especially of minors, we do what we do at child advocacy centers in the Rio Grande Valley, in Houston, in Dallas, and elsewhere. We visit with these children to find out who the traffickers are in the state of Texas. Unlike the Biden administration, unlike the Obama administration, unlike any administration, Texas is going to visit with these children in professional and compassionate ways to learn who their traffickers are, and we are going to arrest them, we're going to prosecute them, we're going to put those traffickers where they belong, which is behind bars in the state of Texas. And we are not going to accept Biden's open border policies. We're not going to accept his Green New Deal policies. We're not going to accept his attempt to take our guns. Texas is fighting back, and Hidalgo County is going to help lead the way in that fight. My closing line is this. I am incredibly inspired having been here tonight, getting to see the way that Hidalgo County is transformed, seeing the values that you're embracing, seeing the vision that you have for the future, not just of the Rio Grande Valley, but for the state of Texas and for the United States of America. And I know, having been here tonight, that the future of Texas truly is brighter than it's ever been. I thank Adrienne, as well as every leader you have in this room tonight, for your tireless work to keep Texas the best state in the greatest nation in the history of the world. God bless you all, and God bless the great state of Texas. Thank you all.
God bless you, Governor Greg Abbott. Thank you so much. Today, I have the honor of introducing Mayra Flores, Hidalgo County GOP's Hispanic Outreach Chair, one of the most hardworking women I know. She's running for Congress, District 34. Please give her a round of applause.
Good evening. It has been a pleasure serving as a Hispanic Outreach Chair. I remember the day I met Adrienne, like it was yesterday, 3 years ago. I still remember how just Grace, she was so welcoming. I was very nervous going into the GOP, but she made me feel like family from day one. So it has been a pleasure serving as a Hispanic Outreach Chair. Thank you, Adrienne. What helped me connect with the community was my American dream story. I was born and raised with humble beginnings in Burgos, Tamaulipas, Mexico. My parents and grandparents raised me with strong conservative values to always put God and family first. I came legally to the United States at 6 years old with the help of my father. My father gave me and my family the biggest gift, the gift of becoming a proud, naturalized American citizen. Amen. Growing up, I worked alongside my parents in the cotton fields to earn extra money for school, clothes, and supplies, instilling the value of hard work and the importance of education in me at a young age. I remain a firm believer in the American dream, and I will always fight so that others can achieve it as I have. I am eternally grateful to my parents for providing me an opportunity to come to this amazing country to live the American dream. This is why I am proud to introduce to you another American dream story. She is a history maker, the first Latina elected statewide office in Texas, and the first Latina to serve on the Supreme Court of Texas. She has made it into our children's textbooks and has received dozens of awards for her service on the bench and in the community. She is a high vote getter at the ballot box. In 2016, she said when She set what then were record highs in the primary and general elections. She is the state's highest Latina vote getter of all times. She has devoted to improve the lives of the Texans she serves and has brought strong leadership. She might not know this, but she's also an inspiration to me and why I am running for Congress. Please help me welcome Justice Eva Guzman.
Thank you. I'm honored to join you tonight. I know that Hidalgo County has been through a lot. I know that you have been deeply affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is so gratifying to see all of you here tonight, coming together as a community, coming together on the other side of the pandemic. I was in court this morning, and we had the Amazon case argue, big case. But after I finished with court, I got on the road, and I had my own favorite first responder with me, though. My husband, retired Houston police officer, Tony Guzman. Thank you, Tony, for driving me. And you heard the governor talk about this today, but I want to mention it too. And I'm really excited to be in this room with about 400 of you. You truly represent a microcosm of the future of the Republican Party. It's right here in Hidalgo County. And you heard this. The entire country is talking about what happened in South Texas in 2020. It seems some took the Latino vote for granted. They thought they knew us better than we know us. But you, Hidalgo County, you're strong, you're bold, you're independent, and you were led by patriots like the tireless and extraordinary Adrian Peña Garza. Let's give it up for Adrian. Woo, woo. Look, Hidalgo County showed America what's possible when we join forces, when we stand up, when we show up, and when we speak up for our values. So tonight, and I'm a judge, my speeches always have a few stories and different things that I like to talk about. I'm a judge on, as you heard, on the state's highest civil court. And guess what? Thanks to Governor Abbott, he's no longer here to hear this, but now 4 out of the 9 justices are women. And Governor Abbott appointed the second Latina to the court, my colleague, Justice Rebecca Huddle. She's doing an amazing job. So tonight, we come together as Texans, as Americans, and I think it's fair to say we're all thinking and talking about what will things be like this time next year? What about 2024 and beyond? What does the future hold for our party and our country? Abraham Lincoln, whose legacy we honor tonight, said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." You are creating the future, Hidalgo County, right here tonight. But friends, if I may call you that, because so many in this room are my friends, this is not my first trip to Hidalgo County. Supreme Court of Texas has heard its cases in Hidalgo County, and I work a lot on behalf of access to justice, and that's thinking about our neighbors who don't have the economic resources to access the court system. Part of my job is to make sure that every Texan has access to the courts. Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, serving our communities. That is what I work with very, very closely. But I want to talk about these sharp divisions. They exist, even within our own party, and we know with folks on the other side. And what they've done, if they've really strained the bonds of what unites us as Americans. These days, there doesn't seem to be a lot of coming together to solve problems, to build bridges, or to heal wounds. It seems some leaders can't even acknowledge there's a crisis. When there's a crisis, we have a crisis on the southern border, folks. Along those lines, some no longer want to exchange ideas. In fact, it's become very fashionable to attack conservatives about their ideas. Our most cherished institutions are under relentless attack, and Governor Abbott spoke to this. It seems nothing is out of bounds. How far will it go? Look, I've spent the last 30 plus years as the very happy wife of a law enforcement officer. I've spent a lot of time around good, honest, hardworking officers who on any given day would lay their life down for their community. But what we've seen are these unprecedented attacks on law enforcement. I'm proud of our men and women in law enforcement. If you are in law enforcement, if you have a family member who's in law enforcement, would you rise so we can honor you tonight? You are our real heroes. Would you please rise? Tony Guzman, you're the first one. Woo! Thank you. Thank you for your service. You're our heroes. Look, I want to talk very briefly about another issue. You know, the legal system is also under attack. You keep hearing systemic this and systemic that. We know that. But let me tell you something about the American legal system. And that's that it's hardwired for fairness and equal treatment. No other legal system in the world has the checks and balances that our legal system does. Under a rule of law system, and that's what this is all about. It's about the rule of law. That's why we stand strong for our ideals. Every person, every entity, every institution must answer to the laws. No one's above the law. John Adams was the second president of the United States. He was a champion of rule of law, and I bring this up because if you have a lawyer these days who's representing a conservative, they become the subjects of vicious and vile attacks. This is nothing new. John Adams, our second president, was one of the most revered lawyers of his day. But back then, there was only one person who would step forward to defend the British soldiers. Only one, in the Boston Massacre. I know you remember that from reading history. When he did, though, when John Adams took on their defense, he incurred the wrath of the entire community. But he did it because he stood up for what was right, for the rule of law. He showed up, he stood up, and he spoke up. The world saw that in the American system of justice, the law applies to the popular and unpopular alike. We're a nation of laws, not of men. So recognizing what we have and the lengths that we'll go to protect it is what unites us. It's what empowers us as a nation of free people. We share core values, you know we do. We may not agree on everything, but there are core values that we do agree on. And they transcend race, ethnicity, culture, creed. Yo soy mexicana. My parents were born en un pueblito muy cerca de Monterrey, Gualahuises, Nuevo León. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of it. Yeah, we got a few. Woo. But so some call me an unlikely Republican. Maybe some of you are unlikely Republicans too. I'm a big city Latina. I live in Houston. I came from very humble beginnings. I grew up in Houston's East End, the middle of 7 children. My parents had grade school educations, 3rd grade. My father was a welder. My mother managed our busy household, stretched every penny, and worked in factories and cleaning crews. My siblings and I, 6 of the 7, walked the halls of the University of Houston to earn our degrees. My mom, though, she cleaned those same halls to ensure that we had that opportunity. We will do whatever it takes to protect our families, folks. But my story of perseverance, of hard work, of opportunity, is one that's shared by many of you here today. We heard some of the stories just earlier. Mayra Flores, who picked cotton at age 13 with her family. She was motivated by her desire to contribute, but also that same circumstance, knowing what it's like to go to bed hungry, knowing what it's like to have people look down on you because of what you do for a living. That's the same circumstance that motivated Mayra to pursue the American dream. She graduated from college and she's running for Congress. Mayra. My friends in Hidalgo County, this is the Texas we are standing firm to protect. Mayra's story, my story, your stories. These stories represent the story of America. The journeys I speak of, including my own, are marked by triumphs and by defeats, successes and failures. They haven't been easy, and they haven't been perfect. But you know what? America's journey, the journey of our country, has not been easy or perfect either. I believe we're in a rough part of that journey right now, traveling a rocky, rugged road. It's a tiring stretch when we're under constant attack as conservatives. It tests our grit and our character as a country. But now is the time when we must show up, stand up, and speak up for America. Hay que presentarnos, levantarnos y hacernos escuchar. And if you don't speak Spanish, that means show up, stand up, and speak up for America and for our conservative values. And what does it mean? I'm going to wrap it up with this, but what does it mean to show up? What does that mean? It means to show up with your family, to show up with your friends and your neighbors, the unlikely Republicans all around us, to stand up for those values and that vision. You know, you never have to wonder what the judge thinks about any issue, because I'm going to tell you what I think. I stand up for the Constitution of the United States of America and the rights it guarantees us. If it's legal, if it's lawful, if it's in the Constitution, I support it. So don't sit there and wonder what I'm really like. I'm a constitutional conservative. So I'm going to talk very little about my family, but my father was not educated, but very wise. We went to church in Houston's East End. And one thing that the pastor always talked about was serving two masters. You can't serve two masters. And that's what we're seeing in some of our government. Some believe they can claim they respect the rule of law, but mock it at the same time. Some believe they can abandon the core values and yet insist they're working for us. Some proclaim to tell the truth, but they deceive us with their lies. Friends, the test of character, you want to know a person, doesn't lie in what they tell you. It lies in what they do, in their actions. Just like that's right. It's just like my father said, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. Tell me who you run around with and I will tell you who you are, because that reflects your actions. So let's show up for the battle of ideas. Let's stand up for our values, and let's speak up the truth. What does freedom mean to you? What type of freedom do you want for yourself, for your children, for your children's children? Is it freedom to speak without fear of being silenced? How many times have you held back because you know they're coming after you? Is it freedom to worship? Freedom to pursue economic opportunities, the opportunities we've been talking about here today? Freedom to raise and instruct our own children without the government telling us how to raise our children? And importantly, freedom to protect our homes and our businesses. I brought my law enforcement today, but you ought to be able to protect yourself too. Can you say it with me one time? Show up. Stand up. And speak up for freedom. Thank you. Yes. So I'm going to close where I started. Abraham Lincoln's words. The best way to predict your future is to create it, and the time to begin is now. Thank you. I'm humbled, I'm honored, I'm thrilled, I'm delighted to be here with you and to get to know you. May God bless you, and may God bless the great state of Texas. Thank you. Thank you very much. You all are amazing. Thank you. Commissioner, good to see you. Thank you.
Wow. I'm quite speechless with Justice Guzman and Governor Abbott. Before I present the next presenter, I would like to remind everyone about the amazing silent auction that we have right back there. So if you haven't already, go check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Jimmy Garza.
Thank you, appreciate that, Judge. Wonderful words. Congratulations. Well, good evening, guys, y muy buenas tardes. My name is Aquiles Jaime Garza. My friends and family call me Jimmy, and my friends in the GOP just call me Adrian's husband. So, pretty simple. Well, tonight's my honor to introduce our next speaker and tell you a little bit about him. George P. Bush was the first Bush that I ever met. In 2012, Adrian met George P. at a Republican National Convention in Tampa with her dad. That evening, she would call me and tell me that she had committed us to do a fundraiser for George P. Bush and the Hispanic Republicans of Texas, a PAC which he had recently co-founded. At this point, folks, we had never done an event at our house, much less an event for a Bush. So it was pretty intense, and quite honestly, the first thing I had to do was do a quick internet search and realize that George P. Bush, he looked nothing like the other two George Bushes I'd ever met. This guy, he looked more like he could be like, I don't know, maybe my primo from Guanajuato. He was tall, he was dark, and he was Bush. I learned quickly that George P. Bush was a man of God, that he was born in Houston, Texas, the son of Jeb and Columba Garnica Gallo. He graduated from Rice University and the University of Texas Law. He was an intelligence officer in the Navy. He deployed under a different name to Afghanistan, and he served proudly in Operation Enduring Freedom. In other words, he was pretty badass. The fundraiser at our home ended up being one of the single largest fundraisers that HRT had that year. George was a pretty easy sell. Folks in the valley loved him, and he promised to return. And boy, did he return. He kept returning 17 times to be exact. And there was only one rule in every one of those trips. It was, Jimmy, we need to go to places that Republicans have never gone. So we did. Our first stop was the Pulga de Alamo. For those of you that don't speak Spanish, that's a flea market right off of 83 here in Alamo. Well, for the last 10 years, we've crisscrossed the Rio Grande Valley. We've been building relationships with city leaders and school leaders, with all the citizens of the smaller communities. We've been to Elsa, we've been to Palmhurst, to Donna, and to San Juan. And we've been to Laguna Vista and Port Isabel, a lot of the smaller communities that Republicans don't go and that Democrats take for granted. At one point at a county event, the county judge asked George publicly, he said, have you moved down here, George? Because he sees him so much at new events. I've come to realize that George P. Bush will be a friend of the Valley for life. He will be a passionate advocate for our region for decades. I admire his vision of investing the early years of his political career not only in Hidalgo County, but in our GOP. Folks, we are his base. And like President Trump said about George P., and I quote, I like him. He's going far. He's going places. This is the Bush that got it right. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome back to the Rio Grande Valley, Commissioner George P. Bush.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Jimmy, like a lot of Bushes, you married way up. Adrian's been phenomenal tonight. I look at this room, I look at what you've built here, and it's breathtaking. As the governor has said, this is the best party operation in the state, and I'm proud to join you all tonight. I'm thankful for our leadership in the great state of Texas. Justice Guzman, Governor Abbott, great local leadership. Came this close. We're busting down the door next election cycle. And the turnaround in Texas starts right here in the Rio Grande Valley. We are brought together tonight because of two towering heroes of American history, Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan. Abraham Lincoln is the greatest president in our country's history. Took on the Confederacy, ended the Civil War, freed the slaves, and in the end gave his life for the higher ideas that are embodied in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution. Ronald Reagan, the most successful president of the 20th century, with the help of, it's okay to clap about Ronald Reagan. Don't be shy, don't be shy. Along with George H.W. Bush, ended the Cold War, liberated millions from totalitarianism, and did his best on the 40-year anniversary to not give his life. He fought for the ideas, the higher ideas of our country. In this time, we face challenges, not the types of challenges that they faced. Lincoln with the sovereignty of this country under attack, and Reagan facing a bullet himself, the Cold War, but with his disarming humor on this 40th anniversary, I thought I'd share a joke. Some of you may be reading about that book from Jim Baker, where he asked Jim if his nurses and his doctor were Republican, because he wanted to recover okay after getting shot. It was that kind of humor that was disarming even to the most extreme leftists of his time. But as the governor said, in today's era, in 2021, we face socialism with a smile. But I think we have to give credit to the left, right? We knew when we saw Bernie Sanders in his campaign, when we saw Joe Biden, that they told us exactly what they would do if they took the White House and the Senate and the House. They said they'd raise your taxes. They said they'd grow government. They said they'd take your guns. They said that they would open the borders. And look what's happening. AOC and the gang told us that with the Green New Deal that they would shut down the oil and gas industry. They said that they would put the planes on the ground. And Jimmy, since you're in agriculture, they said that they'd monitor cow flatulence because of methane emissions. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen, with the modern day left. But we as conservatives offer something different. As Justice Guzman said, equality of opportunity, not equality of results. We stand for timeless values that stand the test of time, even before the Constitution was drafted. Values like the Second Amendment. The founders knew exactly what they were talking about when it came down to the bearing of arms. They knew that from the British example, that with an overreach of a federal government, that a well-informed citizenry needs to defend itself. And the Second Amendment was drafted to protect our own personal livelihoods, our places of residence, our family members, those that we love. But yet the modern day left wants to continue to take those guns. The Constitution also provided for other values that we fight for tonight, like the rights of the unborn children in our country. Defunding that starts with defunding Planned Parenthood in the state of Texas and around our country. That means praying for those in our crisis pregnancy centers throughout the state and praying that those that are faced with that choice, that they think about the sanctity of life and that we create that culture of life right here in Texas. As the governor mentioned, another value that we fight for is the sanctity of our elections. There should never be a doubt in our country about the valid results at the ballot box. To buy prescription drugs, to get on a plane, you need an ID, right? But yet for the most fundamental constitutional duty that we have, and that is to vote, somehow the left is upset with showing up with an ID. That's absolutely wrong. So I'm proud to tell you that at the land office, we've been a part of this fight. And shoulder to shoulder with Governor Abbott, we took on the Obama administration on the boundaries of the other side of the state of Texas in the Red River. You may have followed this case where we took on the Obama administration. They made claim to 50,000 acres of ranch land, farmland, generations, much like in the valley, that have owned this land and patiently paid their property tax. But yet an overwhelming federal government comes to Texas and tries to take their land from them. We joined in the lawsuit, and thanks to the Trump administration, we got a favorable settlement. And the ranchers can sleep at night up in the North Texas area. We saw radical environmental plaintiff attorneys coming in from San Francisco and New York attempting to list more species. As conservatives, we need to define success by taking species off the list, right? Only 1% of species that have been listed since the 70s have been delisted. The golden cheek warbler, a Central Texas songbird, was starting to affect our combat readiness. Fort Hood, Texas, the largest military installation in North America, was suddenly under attack. We visited with the garrison commander. He told us that because of the golden cheek warbler, his acreage was somehow impacted, and suddenly he couldn't send and prepare his troops as readily as he could in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan. Ladies and gentlemen, when we're talking about national security being impacted by, and I love the songbird, it's great, it's a pretty bird, but that's a problem. That's a problem. And so at the land office, we've also been taking the fight to the Biden administration. And Governor Abbott had great vision because he's been in the trenches before. He saw what was coming. And lo and behold, we've seen more executive orders come from this president than any other president in modern American history. And so what we did at the land office was set up the Legal Defense Task Force to push back get together with community stakeholders, property owners, and prepare to get involved in the courthouse and push back on this overreach that we're seeing from the modern day left. As we promote these conservative values, travel in the valley, spreading the good message of conservative ideas and conservative government and leading to the prosperity that we've enjoyed as Texans, I ask each and every one of you that when we do this without hatred. We do this without pettiness. We do this without being ugly. That we follow the example of Abraham Lincoln and of Ronald Reagan. That we do this with transparency, integrity, and character. Here in Texas, we're rightful to criticize Hunter Biden, right? When President Trump got elected in 2016, he was absolutely right when he said, drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. There's way too much corruption in Washington, D.C., way too much corruption in Austin, Texas. And so when we take on that corruption and we condemn Hunter Biden, we also got to think about ourselves and the Republican Party. We have a statewide elected official, one of the most powerful offices in our state, that continually abuses the office time and time and time again. So for those of you that love sports, you know that when you're talking about football, when you're talking about baseball, you got to put the best team on the field. And as we approach 2022, I'm going to ask you all to give careful consideration as to who we put on that field. And I look forward to visiting with you on that. So let's send a message to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in 22. It's time for you to retire. Been in Congress too long. When it comes to the squad, we're not going to kowtow to your ideas. And most importantly, let's end cancel culture in the United States of America. I'm the father of a 7 and a 5-year-old. Pretty soon I won't have anything to read to them. I mean, Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head are suddenly off the list. But in all seriousness, this cancel culture is what we've seen on college campuses throughout the country. But now it's entering the public square. If you hold ideas different from the mainstream media or the modern day left, suddenly your professional career is canceled. You get doxxed. People show up at your home. They harass you and your family if you're sitting down in a restaurant. This has got to end. We've got to stand for the First Amendment and allow for a free expression of ideas. That's what made our country great. So this fight is about freedom. Freedom to live our lives, freedom to run our businesses, freedom to keep our guns, freedom to protect the unborn, freedom to keep Texas great. This is our moment. This is our mission. Let's do this together. May God bless each and every one of you. May God bless the United States of America.
Thank you so much, George Bush. Now, I'd just like to go ahead and remind you that we do have our silent auction and it will be closing soon. So for now, just go ahead and enjoy yourselves for a moment and we'll be right back.